Christa, how are you this evening?
I'm great. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for making the time to do this. I can't wait to talk to you and kind of pick your brain for all the knowledge I know you have about publishing, because you've been doing this a little while now, yeah. If you
Yep.
would just give us an overview of your career.
Yeah, sure. So I started as an intern back in college, both agency interns. So I started at Writer's House. I interned there actually twice, and then I interned at Sterling Lord Literistic. And then back in 2009, I joined the children's department of McIntosh and Otis as an assistant, where I worked under Edward Necker-Solmer for a few years, and then was promoted to an agent in 2013, and I've been agenting since. So just a little over 6 years now.
So, did you always know that you wanted to be a literary agent?
No, not specifically. When I was in college, I was an English major, like a lot of us are, and I didn't specifically want to teach. And one of my friends actually interned at Writer's House, and he's like, "You would love this. You are a big reader. You should, apply for an internship." And I did. And I hadn't really thought much about working in publishing at all, and I loved it, and I liked experiencing the agency side of things, and the potential of finding that next great author in the query pile, and being the first set of eyes on these things. It just was really exciting to me. And then I ended up on the kids side of things, and I can't imagine being anywhere else. Honestly, I love it so much. I'm very much a kid at heart, so yeah, it's a perfect fit.
So, when you were originally majoring in English, was it just because you loved to read, and so that was a good subject to major in, or did you have some other ambition with
That
your
was
degree?
definitely a big part of it. I always was a big reader. My dad was a big reader and got me into reading at a very young age. So even before I knew how to read, my parents said I was making up stories by looking at the picture books and just like trying to remember what my parents said, and doing stories that way. And then that just, my whole life, always been a big reader. But when I started college, it wasn't necessarily what I initially thought of doing. I actually started pre-med, so totally different. And then I realized that wasn't for me. I thought about nursing, and then I was like, I have to think more about what I'm passionate about and what I love. That was more like, hey, this is a, great position to go for. And then English, I wasn't sure what I would do with that. But, once I got into learning that being in publishing was a thing, it just, it kind of fell into place.
No, when we talked with Agent Holly Root, she also was in, I think, pre-med,
Hmm.
and she said that eventually, when she's done running her own business and finds time, she's going to try and still be a part-time doctor eventually.
Oh, yeah.
Which, if anyone could do it,
I mean,
I'm
that would
sure
be
she could.
amazing.
So you get an internship with Writer's House, and you
Hmm.
were in school at Binghamton, is that right?
That's right. Yep.
So did you grow up in New York?
Yeah, I grew up in the state. So I grew up in Western New York, about an hour and a half south of Buffalo, very small town. So Binghamton was pretty much halfway in between where I grew up in the city. And a lot of people who go to Binghamton are from Long Island and the city. So I started visiting the city more. And then as soon as I knew I wanted to get into publishing, I think maybe 2 weeks after I graduated college, I moved to New York, and, started looking for jobs. And luckily, I have an aunt who lives here. So when I first moved, I lived with her for a bit. And yeah, so I've lived in the city now since 2008. So a while.
That's where I'm talking to you tonight, is in New York City.
Yep, I'm in Brooklyn.
Excellent. So that's a very lucky break if you have an aunt that's living right there. And I don't know if she lets you stay rent free or just gave you a better deal than you might have got it elsewhere.
At first, like while I was looking for jobs, but as soon as I got a job, then there was definitely rent that was to be paid.
Gotcha. That's one of
But
my.
I know I was lucky and didn't, otherwise I probably would have been living with six roommates somewhere. But yeah, so I definitely was lucky.
That's what I love are those stories about me and my six roommates in a studio apartment.
It's probably a good story, right?
So, Writer's House, you were an intern there twice, so they just have clear defined internships, or?
So what happened is the first time I interned there was only for winter break. So that was just the month of January. So it was just kind of an intro, getting a sense of what working on the agency side was like. And then the second time I was there for a full semester. So I got the full experience, and Writers House was really great with their internship programs. And I know they still do this now, where they almost do kind of master classes where you can learn about subreddits or audio, the book process, all different parts of the book process, where they'd have different agents teach that, and they would bring, intern alumni in to talk about what it's like since they interned and what their job is. So it was a really great learning experience for me, for sure.
Sounds amazing.
Yeah. They have a great program over there.
And that convinced you that this is the life.
Yeah, it got me to start thinking about it for sure. And then when I had my second internship, which was at Sterling Lord, and then I was seeing what it was like to work at a slightly different agency, and seeing other sides of publishing there too, because I learned different things at each place, I would say. After that, I was like, yeah, this is it. This is what I want to do.
And so when did you decide that children's books were going to be your specialty, and why did you decide that?
Yeah, the funny thing is that in both of my internships, I was mostly reading adult. So I really wasn't reading any children's during that time. So it just happened when I graduated. I graduated in 2008, and I was applying to a little bit of everything. Because just breaking into publishing can definitely be tricky. And it just ended up that I actually hadn't applied to the job at McIntosh and Otis. I'd interned at Curtis Brown, and my mentor, who I mentioned before, Edward Neckarsalmer, he started there. And so the person I interviewed with at Curtis Brown, they're like, hey, we know you're looking for an assistant. You should bring this girl in. So I got a call from Edward, and I was like, who is this, McIntosh and Otis? And I'd been interviewing for a while, and then I went in and I was hired the next day. And Edward did the children's department, so picture books up through YA. So I just kind of fell into the children's side of things. But once I was there for a while, I just knew this was the perfect fit, because I love reading YA, I love reading middle grade, I loved getting to learn the picture book side of things. So it just ended up working out very well.